Hello, and welcome back to my home. Just kidding. I wanted to thank Sheryl for all the amazing conversations that she's enabled over the past few days. My name is Lana, and my agency happens to be named Purpose. It's something that I care very much about, and I'm excited to introduce you to the topic and this amazing panel today. But before we get started, too, if you were here yesterday, I wanted to give a nod to Sheryl and the really intentional and meaningful conversations that she's been having here. If you've been here over the week, you may have been to many places down on the Crusette, and you may, maybe you saw Cardi B, maybe you've been surrounded by dozens of people, but the conversations that I heard here yesterday and that were led by strategic people that honestly I have never met, including one that I left yesterday that included Deborah Lee, who is the 13-year CEO of BET, Dexter Santos, who leads player services for the NFLPA. It was just incredible, and that particular conversation naturally ended on purpose. And something that Dexter said before he left the stage today, somebody asked him to talk about measurement, and he said, I'm paraphrasing, you can watch the video because this is captured, but he said, you need to take a step back. If we don't start with purpose and alignment at the very beginning, we're crushed before we're off to the races. So I'm so excited to have this conversation today. I've had the opportunity to meet these incredible people here on the stage with us today. And we're just going to dive into it. But one thing, if you're paying attention to purpose, another role for me is as the co-chair of the Purpose Council for the Association of National Advertisers. And at this point, working with them and then having the honor of helping to advise and help represent Bridge, Sheryl Daija is sitting over there. I've learned so much over the past few years, and I don't think we're at quite the same point anymore in terms of fighting that purpose isn't driving profit and other metrics. So I think we're beyond that. We know that purpose-driven organizations have a customer loyalty that goes far beyond other organizations. We know that it protects them during times of crisis. And we also know we've started to connect it to revenue and opportunity. And I think Sheryl and some of the others will talk about that today. So today is really focused on purpose-driven organizations, including the 4 here. So I think we're going to go and start off by having the panelists introduce themselves and their organization, and to really just tee into what purpose and a purpose beyond profit means to each of you. I am going to tee it off, if you don't mind, to Josiane first with PICHA.
Yes, thank you so much. Hi, everyone. Can you hear me well? So happy to be here. I'm thankful. Thank you, Sheryl, for everything here. It's the most soulful place you could be at Cannes right now. It's really amazing. I've been here almost every day, and I've learned so much. My name is Josiane Faubert. I live in Seattle, and I have this company called PICHA Stock. And with PICHA Stock, I help photographers license their content to companies and brands. So I work with photographers from Afrocentric communities. And with that, when I started the company, it was with a lot of intention to allow them to license. My strong belief was that you could be in a small village in Tanzania and be able to license to companies in the United States, in Europe, anywhere in the world, because we have technology. So technology enables that, and the world is just open, and it was an opportunity to be that bridge.
Thank you so much. And you're really kind of doubling down on the creators, is
Yes.
my understanding.
Yeah.
Okay. Amy, how about yourself?
Oh, we're mixing it up.
Yeah, mixing it up a little.
Hi, my name is Amy. I'm the founder and CEO of a company called Goodloop. We are a media technology platform. We work with brands to embed social impact into their media campaigns, and then importantly, measure the business results of the good that they do. Yeah, really proud to be on the panel, really excited for the conversation.
Amy, what types of clients are, just out of curiosity?
We work with, any brand that's got a clear mission and has something that feels authentically good. So it's really less about sectors, and it's more about finding those businesses that have values that they want to really celebrate. So we work across everything from helping Nature Valley support national parks and preserving national parks across the states, to Nike supporting some of the causes that their athletes champion. So really wherever there's that natural fit between a brand and a good cause, that's where Good Loop can jump in.
Interesting. Yeah, it was on a recent call that we had with the council. It was a surprise to me, but Maker's Mark recently became a B Corp, which was really interesting, and it was all about sustainability and, you know, kind of the roots of what they make their products from. It was incredible.
It's a great example. And so Good Loop was the first advertising technology company to be certified as B Corp globally, something I'm incredibly proud of. We just did our second round of certification. And there's quite a lot of controversy around B Corp. I know that like Dr. Bronner's has famously left B Corp recently because they say it's got too easy, and Maker's Mark and Nespresso, some of these big businesses are getting in. But to me, I mean, the B Corp creates an Overton window of what good looks like in business. And by bringing in these big businesses, you're shifting everybody slightly further towards the end goal. And I think that's an incredibly inspiring place to be.
Awesome. I want to hit Cassandra next because Getty Images brand recognition is off the charts. You know, I don't think we have to explain Getty Images, but you're in a very particular area within Getty Images with the HBCU, and I'd love to have you explain the area and the purpose beyond profit.
So first, Cassandra Illidge, Vice President of Global Partnerships at Getty Images. My main responsibility is to bring content to the platform through partnerships with large corporations that want to monetize it, protect their intellectual property, and they see Getty Images as the space where they can actually share it with a global audience. One, most people hear of Getty Images, but you know us only by maybe if you're in advertising, you know creative content. If you're in news, you know the news content, sports, entertainment, and our photo coverage. We are everywhere, that's our goal, and to make sure that content is accessible to everyone. With that said, we have a responsibility to also make sure that content creators are celebrated and paid fairly, royalties, but also open the door for opportunities for content creators that may not actually know that there's an opportunity to be with Getty Images. We want creatives to be from everywhere, including HBCUs. So for those who may not know what an HBCU is it's a historically black college and university in the United States. There's over 100 of them. And we started a program which is helping them actually protect their historical content, celebrate the content that's being covered today on campus. And then also we're bringing opportunities for students to come into the fold by mentorship. So we want to increase the roster of talent and make sure that they're coming from every source. So this is a pleasure to be here and to talk about the program, but also the other programs that we've launched for inclusivity and to celebrate other culture and make sure that everyone has a seat at the table.
That's incredible. I didn't know about the archiving of the content too, and that's I mean that's
so much more important
it's amazing.
Right now.
Well, yes. Sheryl, I think that's a great segue into Bridge.
So firstly, amazing panelists. I feel honored to be part of this, and thank you, Sharon, for having us. And by the way, you can use your fans. We just can't because it's interfering with the mic. So feel free to pull out your fans. Even though I saw you put them away, it was not you, it was us. So I am Sheryl Daija. I'm the founder and CEO of an organization called Bridge. If you haven't heard about us, we're 3 years old. We launched in April of 2022. And we are the first diversity, equity, and inclusion trade group for the global marketing industry. It's okay, you don't have to gasp, we're okay, we're hanging in. And we are going to continue to do the work. Our mission is really about, and has been, even before this collision with politics that we're experiencing, is to really help companies move away from DEI as a philosophy and help companies operationalize inclusion as a business practice for growth. And we look at inclusion as a business opportunity, not as an HR function. And we'll talk a little bit more about how we do that. But it essentially it's essential when you think about, purpose. inclusion is at the heart of it. Yes, I was talking about, disruptive creative. Well, inclusion is at the heart of that too, right? And so how can brands think about inclusion as transformational and not philosophical? And so that's who we are. We have Fortune 500 brands, agencies, technology companies on our board. We are a not-for-profit organization, but our goal is to help companies profit from inclusion. So that's us.
Thank you, Sheryl. And such an incredible board, I have to say, and the amount of work that you've done in such a short period of time is just mind-blowing. That kind of leads to the next conversation topic when we all met as a panel that we wanted to talk about. So a purpose beyond profit is fantastic, but not also a dream. And that last thing that Dexter said yesterday is if we don't align at the beginning, we're crushed before we're off to the races. And so I want to talk a little bit about how you measure what you treasure. And I stole that quote from Yin Rani, who is on Sheryl's board, because I love it. And I believe it to be true. So I'm not sure, does anybody want to tackle that one first? Any takers?
I can start. I can do.
Thank you, Josiane.
How you measure what you treasure, I love that. I feel like it should be like a philosophical way of doing business. Because business, we should enjoy doing it. And the more we embrace others, we try to be inclusive, have a mission that serve others, I think the business becomes enjoyable. How do we measure it at PICHA? For us, the growth comes through, because there's two sides, it's a two-sided market. We have the contributors, so it's not just on the number. A lot of people love to see growth, but for us, it's not necessarily on the number of contributors we get. It's how much can we retain them? How much can they learn from us to continue to stay with us and grow with us? So we measure it by the number of images they submit, the inquiries. Do they send us message to understand how the business of stock works? Do they show up when we have workshops? We have a lot of internal KPIs, indicators to help them be the best and understand the world of stock photography industry. Many, especially in Africa, many don't know that there is such a thing that they can put their egg there. So there's a lot of talk, chat, workshops that we organize to get that. And on the other side, it's also working with companies, our partners, or the brands that we work with, to allow them to provide to the community and their users something that's a little bit different. The company that we work well with are international usually, because they understand it better. They understand the global lens better than the people who just are in the US, for example. I'm based in Seattle. So here it's different. It's the number of country you represent. That's also really good interest to some of our partners. The diverse type of imagery you can provide. And then for us also keywording, it's very important. Like if we show that we have some form of type of keywording that could help them also into their metadata system, that's also a plus.
That's fantastic. I love the qualitative and the quantitative and just kind of working with both of them.
Can I add to that? Only because
jump in.
Yin's quote always, you say it so often, she says it literally every time she speaks, but I think it's worthwhile kind of talking a little bit about why that quote is actually so powerful, because the current structure that we have is that you actually treasure what you measure, right? Like that's really the way the current industry works, right? If you've got metrics, that's what you keep doing, right? Brands are tried and true. They do what they've done before. And so in a lot of respects, they're treasuring what they currently measure. And this really turns that paradigm on its head, which I think is so powerful, which is stop thinking about it in that way. Start thinking about how do you measure what is most important to you. And if you currently do not measure what is most important to you, how can you do that, right? And so, you know, from our perspective, right, we talk about inclusion obviously a lot. Our goal would be to have inclusion as a brand metric, right? So you start to actually, that would change the industry's approach to how you're thinking about inclusion. And so it really, I love the fact that it just turns everything on its head. And we should, as an industry, start to kind of push for more measurements around the things that matter, less measurements around the things that we just do all the time. So
No, please.
I wanted to jump off the point of like, what's most important to you? If we start there, one of the things I'm most obsessed with in business is thinking about the strategic role that good can play within a company. And there's so many, and it's so different for every business. So to speak to some examples, H&R Block is a business where you do your taxes for the first time when you're maybe in your 20s, super intimidating, and once you've used one platform, you'll probably use it for the rest of your life. And so for them, a really, really important business imperative is driving relevancy and resonance with younger consumers. They need to get that first tax filing, and they need to show that they are relevant to a younger consumer. And we know the younger consumer is very highly activated in terms of being the most diverse generation in history, in terms of being very aware of the climate crisis. For other businesses, we work a lot with Bank of America. For banking sectors, trust is the most important metric. They have very long customer relationships, and trust is the thing that keeps customers loyal. And so for them, the role of good, the strategic role of good in their business is how does it build trust? How do we show our consumers that we care about the things that matter to them? And one final example I'll speak to is at the other end of the spectrum, that those metrics I mentioned are all very top of funnel, very sort of high level, quite sort of qualitative metrics. But let's also look at the quantitative metrics. For some brands, they just want increased ROI from the media spend, right? They want to get better working media, and they want their working media dollars to go further. So good, strategically in that setting, is a way to cut through the noise, drive higher engagement, increase recall, make your ads more memorable, and so you need to buy less of them in order to have the same impact. And so you can show at all ends of the funnel, at all ends of the business spectrum, you can find these really amazing gems where good has a strategic role in the business. And that goes exactly to that point of find what matters most, and then think about good as a way, as one of the many levers you can use.
Thank you, Amy. And now I'm going to ask the brand to respond to that.
I was going to actually, yes. Well, first, understanding how your brand and your product connects with the audience. Not only are we B2B, but how does it get to the consumer? We're not touching the consumer, right? So we are very cognizant of the fact that we have to be responsible about what content we're putting on the platform, where it's coming from, the intellectual property around it, and protecting it, but also who the content creators are. If we don't have a diverse content creator base, how are we going to, what kind of content are we putting out to the public? We look at the trends. We are looking at the data around how content is performing, and also the submissions and where they're coming from. But also we're looking at the interaction with content. We're creating, we can't do this by ourselves. Let's start there. No corporation can do it by themselves. They have to partner with organizations that are also equally invested in change and long-term change. Not a switch of a button. It will never be the case. So with that said, find ways to find organizations that want to invest in toolkits that will not only help them, but help other organizations within their industry. Do groundbreaking work on that end. We've done that with Citi, with toolkits. We've done it with other organizations around diversity. How does that look? Because we know it's shifting every year. Well, now every second, it feels like, right? So how do you depict things authentically? Well, Getty Images can't figure that out by themselves. And I think part of it is to actually partner with organizations, but create a strategy and make it a part of your entire culture.
Just 2 words, but Sheryl, what is one of your hashtags? We are
stronger together.
That's right. Yes, absolutely. Which I think I want to go into the third one because I want to leave time for Q&A before we hit 2:15. And so your organizations are amazing and they're inspiring, but we're not living in a very easy time right now, especially because your global organizations, which is incredibly inspiring to me because I moved to the States the first time when I was 7. I'm half Lebanese and half Australian. The tariffs that you're talking about, payouts to creators, we are also running businesses and we have fiscal responsibilities to our own bottom lines. How is that working and how do things change? You have to give somebody $1 and it costs you $1.25 now. How are you grappling? I'm looking at Josiane because we began this conversation. I'd love to hear some of the challenges that you face as purpose-driven organizations.
There are so many of them. But we're talking about money and commission. We do 50% commission, so 50% to the creative. I'm a creative, so I feel like it's fair, but if I was a creative, maybe I would not think it's that fair. But when you have to send commissions globally on a global scale, some of our contributors, they don't have bank accounts. You have to figure out like the money payment, mobile money payment. So you end up having like transaction with 10,000 vendors, and you have to figure out the exchange rate, what is worth it? Do I have to do wire? Wire is so expensive. Oh my God, thank God for technology, but then technology also, some of those platforms are not really flexible, especially with our type of business. So, we are in a creative industry, so, try to be creative, be patient, and you'll figure it out, but it's always a stress, yeah. What we've done for commission is that we need to reach a threshold, like if you reach a certain amount of money that's worth it, then we can wire you your commission, otherwise,
It's so interesting though, because, we always talk about putting inclusion at the center of product development, right? I mean, if you're a bank, how have you not figured this out, right? Like,
I don't think they want, though.
But I mean, of course, it's an opportunity for a whole new, business product. So it's crazy.
Should start incubating things at
I know,
Bridge.
exactly.
Yeah. Talk to Bank of America.
We have a few people, maybe we'll talk to them. But I think the other thing that, could I add something to what you were saying, because it is a tough time, obviously. But one of the things that we've seen very clearly is reputational risk, right? And it's a little bit more, maybe like it's a fuzzy thing, right? But reputational risk is real in this moment. And we've seen companies that have overcorrected, right? And have really suffered from reputational risk. And mostly we're so, I think, disappointed because some of them were leading the way in so many cases, right? And so it's very important in this moment, I think, to understand that when you overcorrect in one way or another, that the risk is actually higher, right? So that's like kind of the first thing. The second thing that I would say is, and perhaps even just to build on that is, you had we all know who the company is, so. But it's a company that with the values and the culture, right, were so strong. And so it's so important to understand who you are in this moment. There's nothing more important than understanding who you are, what your culture is and what your values are, and making sure that you align to those values. And if it is purpose-driven, this is not a moment to walk away from that. There's a moment to actually double down. Yeah. Ultimately, your reputational risk will be mitigated. So that's the first thing. The second thing, as we're talking about, the challenges, is the reason why there's such chaos is because, there's a focus right now on a very specific thing, which is racial and gender hiring, right? It's been reduced to that specific thing. Well, again, I'm very disruptive, so I think about things very differently, right? So my whole position is, if you have inclusion across your organization, if you have purpose across your organization, if you have good across your organization, and it starts at the business level, not at the creative brief, right? Because that's too late, but at the business level, you're actually reducing your vulnerabilities to attack because it's very hard to find, right? That's why a company like Elf, Sephora, they are, they're so embedded in what they do, right? So companies need to be really mindful in this moment to think about how do you mitigate risk, but staying true to what they're doing, and that is not to narrow in.
Absolutely. I'm looking at the clock, so I just want to give Amy and I want to give Cassandra a quick chance to answer this one, because I see Oscar from PayPal out there with the microphone, and I know that the audience wants to ask you all some questions. So, Cassandra?
So I was going to say, obviously as a global entity, we are constantly looking at, okay, what's going, one, we are in news, we're in creative. You know, news-wise, everything that is happening, we're covering it because we want to make sure that it's unbiased. We're giving an opportunity for the actual storytellers to use the content to tell the story. So we have to be there, but we also have to protect the photographers who are on the ground covering these events. You know, a protest, we don't want them to have rubber bullets in order for them to photograph anything. So we're thinking about it from that end, but also we have content creators to shooting briefs. You know, it's the extremes. For us, you know, staying the course is what we're doing. Many people have asked me while I'm here, obviously, you know, are we still doing the work? Are we still working on the work with historically black colleges? Are we still providing initiatives for nonprofits to gain access to historical content free of charge? Yes, we are still doing the work. We have to do a better job of thank you. But it's across the board. And, you know, if you are looking for content, we're trying to help you. Just reach out. You know, we haven't changed our language. We haven't changed all that. We're not burying the content on the platform. It is there for you to license and use, and we want to make sure you do it right. So we want to partner with the organizations, with the customers, so they find the right way to communicate visually, and not take a step back when we all need to step forward.
Yes.
Amazing. Amy, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I'd love to. I've been running, I started Getty 8 years ago, so it's been a really tumultuous journey of watching purpose and social impact and sustainability evolve within our industry. I first started Goodloop because purpose was this buzzword that everybody was saying. I thought, what's your purpose? What's my purpose? And then that purpose got overused and everyone got sick of it. And in 2021, you know, we were locked in our houses, locked on our screens. We saw the murder of George Floyd. We saw this uprising in anger, both for civil rights and for the climate, actually. I saw a lot of climate activism happening, and I have so many brands coming to us wanting to do stuff. It became obligatory. And we raised the bar collectively on what responsible business looks like. It was obligatory to have a point of view on how you're protecting minorities and marginalised groups, and it was obligatory to have a net zero publicly stated goal. Now those obligations have turned into liabilities, and I think that's a really important thing to be honest and realistic about. And it is disheartening, but I would counter by saying it's perhaps more disheartening to think that the future of our planet and the future of people was ever an industry trend. And actually, I love this idea of it being systemic and baked in. I had a meeting with Sheryl earlier. She told me that this is the first time that their global framework has sustainability in it this year. I spoke with Asahi on a beach earlier, and what a sentence, on a beach, casual. So can, isn't it? All my meetings are on beaches and yachts. And I had a meeting with them. They said all of our product innovation goes through a sustainability filter. Yep. So we will no longer release products that aren't sustainable. It's just not possible anymore. You know, these are the infrastructures from a diversity and a sustainability perspective that didn't exist 5 years ago. Right. So it's disheartening to not hear it in the headlines, but let's get it out of the headlines and into our process documents.
I don't think the headlines are actually what's happening, just by the way.
But I would remind everybody that in 2019, most of the Fortune 500 CEOs that I'm aware of signed a pledge of a purpose beyond profit, and to the best of my knowledge, nobody has unsigned that.
That's correct.
And it might be time to start holding some of them accountable.
I think they're doing that with Target, like there's a big ban on Target, and I think
and
some
Costco
other companies
is benefiting from that.
Definitely benefiting from it.
And just don't forget, like we've seen all the shareholders, right, are voting and rejecting the anti-DEI proposals one at a time, but not small margins, 99%.
This is a moment in time. It is not the
97%.
end of the marathon.
Exactly.
I wanted to just wrap up a couple things. I'm hearing purpose beyond profit. I mean, it is valuable. It is not easy, and it takes a community. We can't do it alone. So I wanted to thank the panelists, first of all, and then I wanted to turn it over because this audience is one that could be up on the stage, and I value that. Thank you, Sheryl.
Of course.
Hi, everyone. Thank you very much for this amazing conversation. So I'm with Getty Images now, but for 10 years I was a sustainability consultant for brands large and small businesses, large corporations, UN agencies. And I have a statement, and then from a recent conversation, and then a question for the group. So I was recently speaking with somebody last week in New York from Leeds MasterCard Foundation, and what he was saying is we had this exact conversation on how does a brand choose the good that they want to do in the sector that they want to talk about and the issue that they want to really focus on. And what he said is MasterCard is a financial institution. It's a financial organization. It's gotten a lot better when it comes to financial inclusion and including communities in underrepresented communities and countries into the financial market. And what he was saying, what a better business decision for MasterCard than to bring more people include them in the financial sector. Now that is transitioning more into financial health, they're doing a lot more when it comes to that. They're figuring out how do you now build their portfolio within the financial sector. So now that they're included, how do you continue to build that? My question for this group is, at Getty Images, we also do a lot with small SMBs and entrepreneurs and solopreneurs when it comes to our iStock branch, and we do a lot of research around what their needs are and their resources. A lot of them are solo marketers in addition to running a mom and pop shop or a cafe on their own. So they have to do the business operations, think about marketing and advertising, and now they're feeling pressure from their own customers and their own vendors on needing to have even a small impact in some of these things. So what would you tell them when they don't have a team, much like a Unilever or a MasterCard, on ways that they can actually make an impact?
I wanted to thank you for the statement, and I want to honor the question so much. I want to continue it out there. I'm so sorry about this, but I have to honor my panel out there, and a few of them have hard stops. So I hate to put a pin in it, but I'm going to kind of scurry us off stage and have you speak to our wonderful panel out there so we can get the next panel on. So I'm sorry to cut it short.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Give them a big round of applause.